Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. There's actually been quite a bit of news, 14 related, as well as some other things that we've learned in recent days. Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC that has started making the rounds. The announcement that Square Enix was going to be essentially replacing Sony's place at E3, which leads us to believe some big announcements regarding some certain things might be happening. And on top of that, the Garo event ending in 5.1. And I'm going to make videos on all those things separately as news segments. But I found that after I watched Endgame, no spoilers, that I kind of just, after every stream, I was just sitting there just thinking about the movie. To the point where I was like, oh shit, I gotta go to sleep because I didn't do any work today. The movie blew my mind. I gotta get back into the rhythm of things this week. I am going to be away for a few days this week, but when I come back, I'm going to be bringing something special for all of you. I am going to be going to the Borderlands 3 gameplay reveal event in Los Angeles, and hopefully that means when I come back, I'll have some Borderlands 3 footage and some gameplay and some thoughts to share with all of you. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. Now, I forgot to open my sponsor list before I got started, so cut. The things I don't have to tell you that I do in YouTube editing, but the things I decide to tell you anyway. Anyway, moving on, we are going to be thanking our sponsors over on Patreon who have been sponsoring the channel through #demonetize. Of course, we have our patrons of light as we do every week, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni. I said thank you a million times before. I'll probably say it a million times again, but thank you to both of you for the immense amount of support that you guys have provided over the years, above and beyond, as I usually say. We also have a growing list of sponsors for the rest of our shout outs. We have our standard Mondays with Mr. Happy sponsors. We have John on. Anyway, Albereo, Sana Arashir of Brynhilder, Kromgar Holzborgson of Gilgamesh, Kevin Wabatalia, Alma Elma, Dark Lumina from Jenova, Marianne, Remil Gaming, Sabo Empire, Mizra, Red Wings of the Baron FC from Zalera, Cidus, Oreo, and Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, That Lane Weeb, Ashen, Emiya of Cerberus, Fafarian, Rendil, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We also have our elite sponsors from Mondays and Mr. Happy. We've got Benjamin, Irish Rager, George, Batar Garl, Yufu Kenshi on Excalibur, Scumlord, Itsumi Amarillo of Gilgamesh, Ravik, Cardrakens from Fanfrit, Sigurd Drake from Balmung, Edge Baron Ultros, Jerica, Emma, Zernik Vorg 13, Chris Suzuki, Crazy Meter from Midgar, Rynoet from Cactar Carol, Serafina, Edelise, Senshi, Shadowlink on the Tonberry server, Dom, Sukawake from Jenova, Limilla Nelhah, Micker Summer, Sarah and the Fennel Family, Janhyua Yotsuyu, Kifkin, Grey Eagles on Exodus, Katayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rylanator Westaus The Purple Warrior, Hedrick Red Steel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiac, Sour Cream and Chives from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Guisha Valfer of Siren, Phoenix Sound FC on Goblin, and Siren from Zodiac. Started flubbing some of those towards the end. And we have our premium sponsors. We've got Nathan, Noel, Sumbla, Nakuniame, Shana Senpai of Behemoth, Zoshima Hasha of Fanfrit, Beatrice, Kazuzu, Vapatiama of Diablos, Shadow Aria, Brynhilder, Zeravayo of Corol, Alchemy, Shinko, Casual Heroes, FC on Maker Summer, Tatach Shock on Hyperion, Kanasuki from Jenova, Ustar on Corol, Sothal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Holy Tabasco, Crass 015, Serenity FC on Ultros, Kat Kazuma, Ignis Vagrant from Excalibur, Valestra of Fanfrit, Not Quarters from Excalibur, Corvus Moonscar, Private Mikey, Nani Kirisami, Rudy Rudiger, Kill Hackman, Wall Jr., and Kiltastic Jones. I don't know why I really wanted to do those all in one breath. Let's just say I'm having a good day. Anyway, with that, let's go into the YouTube comment section for questions. And if you have questions for next week as you're watching this, be sure to put them in the comment section below as well. No guarantee that I'll read them, no guarantee that I'll see all of them, but I'll do my best to get to as many as I can. So let's get started. All right, first question seems like a simple one, quite late question, but if you get to it, #Mondays with Mr. Happy. Is the supposed change to focus tanks on to main and off? Do you think the LB for either of those should be different than the current one, like leaving the damage reduction for the off and giving something different to the main, or would this just create too much imbalance that would make people take certain ones, or the other is not needed 100% for this fight? Well, you immediately create the imbalance of if you were to just happen to bring two off tanks. A lot of people look at this main tank off tank thing a little too much in terms of like binary, like there's one type and there's the other type. Think of it more like this. Think of it more like the way it is now, where there is basically like a bar, and all the way to the left is main tank and all the way to the right is off tank, and they fit in places amongst that bar. It's not like they're just two main tank, two off tank. You have to think of them in a different manner. What tools do they bring that might be somewhat useful in the main tank role, but way more useful in the off tank role? And what tools do they bring that are infinitely more useful in the main tank role, and but still have a little bit of use in the off tank role? Warrior, for example, the premier main tank, and not because of any, I guess the main reason is when they pull, they generate the most aggro. They have a very consistent form of damage mitigation, both with Inner Beast, having the shortest invulnerability ability with Home Gang. I put in quotes because they're not actually, they take damage, they just don't die. They have some of the widest list of cooldowns and self-sustain that any of the tanks actually has. So they get the main tank role, and it's mostly because of the aggro and the ability to sustain with cooldowns on their own. Whereas Paladin has things like cover, where they can cover the main tank and they don't need to be in the main tank role in order to help them. Or they have some more party-wide tools. You know, they are able to provide clemencies. They're able to throw interventions out. They have all this party utility, but those things aren't necessarily less useful in the main tank role. They are just more fitted for the off-tank role. You know, they don't generate as much enmity on the pull, and their off-tank DPS is comparable to that of the other jobs. So there's all these factors. So people read into it too much, like we have our shield and our pure healers, but it doesn't really work in the same dynamic when you look at the tank role, because what you're actually achieving is very different. Reasonably, if you were to bring 2 main tanks, yes, you would have 2 tanks that are very good at taking care of themselves. Both have incredibly great aggro generation and strong survival tools for anything that might actually be targeted at them. But you'll be missing any of the off-tank roles to protect everyone else. You probably have to tank swap more frequently, things like that. However, you look at the off-tank role, you know, you'll probably have less of that aggro generation. If you were to bring 2 off-tanks, one of them would still have better aggro generation than the other, most likely. And on top of that, they would both have tools that allow them to support each other a lot more directly, whichever one happens to be tanking at the current time, as well as protecting party members from various mechanics. So there's a more definable pro-con, where if you were to bring 2 pure healers, as we'd put it, you know, you start missing out on raid shields, which, while not absolutely necessary for most things, is, you know, quite important for quite a few things. And then if you have 2 shield healers, there's a little bit of problem with overlap in certain abilities, as well as, I can't really say having not enough pure healing, because you have more than enough, but that's one of the main imbalances with shield healing, is they do have more than enough direct healing on top of their shields, so that's why the pure healer thing hasn't really worked out thus far. But there's a lot more definable differences between those than there are with the main tank off tank role. So no, I don't think they'll make any limit break changes. I don't think they should, and I don't think there's a good reason to. Next one. Hey, Mr. Happy, this is actually my first question, but I've been lurking around since episode 12. That's a long time, so I'm glad you finally decided to ask a question. I'll make this short. So in the expansion, we're at some point becoming the Warrior of Darkness, but I was wondering if you or the team, which I wouldn't be able to speak for because I'm not the team, knows what the source of darkness we are drawing from is. Like, I know the Dark Knight draws from the darkness, and I assume that was different than the Warriors of Darkness we encountered. I doubt we are allying ourselves with Zodiark, but if we are making the switch from light to dark, does that infer that we will share some connection with Zodiark? I think it's safest to bet that we will share some connection with Zodiark, and a lot of this is going to be learning about the truth between Hydaelyn and Zodiark. The idea of the expansion is to be morally gray. They want you to kind of empathize a little bit with who we've perceived as the villains thus far, and how they can actually be beneficial to us and our objective. And maybe our objectives aren't so different after all, they're just 2 sides to the same coin. So I think that we will be drawing a connection with Zodiark, but I think it's important to designate that the darkness that the Dark Knights actually pull from, there's a lot of lore behind that and how it's very closely affiliated with the coming conflict that we're about to deal with. And without going too much into it, I think that is still a very important thing to look at for how we are really going to go about this transformation into a Warrior of Darkness. The next question comes from one of our patrons, a patron of light in particular. Hello and welcome to Monday with Mr. Kurenai. Hey, no, this is my show. Long time fan, first time asking. Read me. Yeah, I've skipped a lot of his questions because I didn't think they were good in the past, to be honest. All right. Anyway, first question. After running Battle on the Big Bridge on my ult, I was wondering, where does it actually connect to? I think Ethis quizzed me on this on an Air Zivia years ago, and I still don't remember. That is definitely more of an Ethis question, but there is an answer. I think when we actually go to do Battle at Big Bridge, I'm pretty sure they tell us what is attached to both sides of the bridge. But I can't remember off the top of my head, so unfortunately I'm not much useful for that one. But second question, with the 15 collab going on, do you think the Regalia will always be there, or will it go away at the end of the event? As you know, not everyone knows that the challenge login basically only gets mini Cacpot daily, and that's about it. First of all, if you're not willing to do a little bit of research about how to earn MGP, I can't really say I feel too bad for you if you don't get the MGP in time, because it's very, very easy. And honestly, you don't even need to do research. You just need to look around the gold saucer and see everything you can find. I think the Regalia is gone when the event is gone. Don't get me wrong, I'd be okay with it staying, but we've been led to believe, at least with the fact that the event is limited time and this item is part of the event, that would probably be going away. Besides, that means they can charge us for it on the Mog Station a couple years down the road. That hit a little too close to home. I think it'll be gone by the time the event's gone at the end of May. And on to the next one. Here's a name I haven't seen in a while. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time asking during Stormblood, so I have a bonus of flying bears during the Shadowbringers early access period. Never forget Sky Bear. Never forget. Agrax here always posts bear puns in my chat when he comes to Twitch. Don't think I forgot. Anyway, the trust in Shadowbringers allowing you to do dungeon solo is very similar to the Grand Company Squadron system. I feel like I probably got a question like this in the previous weeks, except that it will be that'll be usable in current content. I think this means they won't do any more updates to the Grand Company Squadrons, or will they do opposite and just unlock all the dungeons for Squadron missions instead? You know, I feel like maybe the barrier for entry on Squadrons is a little too high, and that's a main reason why they're doing this. The game doesn't do a great job at even letting you know they exist, to be honest. So I think that maybe Squadrons get updated from level to have some dungeons from 60 to 70, but I don't know if they're going to keep updating Squadrons. I don't know. I guess it depends on how difficult it is on the back end. You know, is it feasible for them to keep adding Squadrons to dungeons? Does having these actually make it easier? Do they determine leveling the Squadrons to be the content for Squadrons, or do they consider like the reward structure and the leveling for the player to be the content from Squadrons? All of these are important factors, and we actually don't know what their outlook is on it. And it's actually probably a pretty important thing that we should learn. I'm expecting them to get access to some 60 to 70 dungeons. The big question is the expansion after Shadowbringers. Do they become available from 70 to 80 dungeons? There's also always the question of, they are still classes. Is it really worth it? 50-50. Maybe it would be better if they took the resources from Squadrons, leave that content as it is, which, you know, has a use even if we out-level them as, you know, veteran players, and maybe just focus on other things. Maybe focus more on the trust system, maybe focus more on other things that they could be working on that would use the same resources. I don't know what those things are, but, you know, that's my thoughts on it. And on to the next one. Question for the next. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello, getting excited for Stormbringers. Strombringers. I've called Shadowbringers Stormbringers so many times. Alright, I got two questions. Stormblood was a good expansion, but the story never drew me in like Heavensward. Just curious if any storylines from Stormblood really immersed you. I've said that Heavensward was one of the best storylines in any Final Fantasy game, period. I was so immersed the whole way through. I think that the 3.0 quests and the 3.3 quests did a phenomenal job with this. A lot, kind of similar to A Realm Reborn, a lot of the things that happened in Heavensward in 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4 didn't really have any sort of payoff, or didn't really have much of a reason to happen. 3.2 is interesting at least, but you know, it basically just culminates into Big Daddy Nidhogg's here, and next patch is going to be really important. And 3.1 is, hey, Warriors of Darkness exist, cool. And 3.4 is, see ya in 5.0. So, I think 3.0 is definitely better than 4.0, and I think 3.3 is a highlight for the entire, that of 2.x on. I think that Stormblood, for me, kind of had this, like, balance a little bit more. I find that villains that are, I guess, a little bit more human, characters like Xenos, characters like Gaius, characters like Solace, I'm more interested in them. What's it called? Tsuyu, of course, Asahi, all these very grounded in reality characters to some degree, as fantasy as they can be. I'm more interested in them. So I wouldn't say so much that the story of Stormblood had this moment where it like super immersed me, but I'd say that I was a little bit more glued to my screen at a lot of points because of the characters I was dealing with. Every time Xenos was on the screen, I was glued to it because I just wanted to, I guess, see as much of that character as I could. Anytime Fordola, who is an absolutely wasted character in Stormblood, considering they wrote her into the side stories on the Lodestone, she was a fantastic addition. 4.1, I think, is the first time where I could really respect the Nanamo Raoban kind of dynamic that goes on there. 4.2 in particular, Asahi and his sort of introduction into his true intentions was a big moment of tension that I really got into. Learning about, or beginning to speculate on things like Elidibus and Xenos' body, Xenos in another body, the ultimate conflict with Tsuyu and Asahi, and the ending of the Stormblood storyline. I may not have been drawn to Hien, I may not have been drawn to Lise, but I was sure as hell drawn to the villains in this expansion, and I, to this moment, still just want to see more of them because a lot of them are still around. So a lot of the big players are still going to be present going into Shadowbringers, and their intentions are either a mystery or something that we are very close to understanding and are very afraid of what the repercussions could be. Oh, and I didn't even notice there was a second question. Let's see. What do you think the biggest concern with healers, especially white mages going forward? I've made it since 2.0. I still love it, but I think healer is the most needed fixing. I kind of touched on this earlier. I think the whole pure healer thing, I think we've accepted at this point. It doesn't work. Healers need to be kind of flexible regardless of situation. They need to be, able to bring party tools regardless of which job you pick. And then they need to have some sort of unique niche that they fill at the same time. I think the Scholar and the Fairy gauge can work out. I think Astro, the cards, and the cards and the sects can work out. White Mage needs something. I don't know what, but they need something. On to the next one. By the way, I did go past quite a few. Not necessarily ones I didn't want to answer, but I wanted to see if there were any sort of, other questions I should prioritize first. So apologies if I skipped a question. Hey, Haps, it's kind of funny how songs by Queen are able to describe my feelings precisely. This time, I'm in love with my car. I thought it said I'm in love with my cat, and mine is just laying in the sun back there, just passed out cold. I don't think you can see him quite. Oh, there he is. There he is. See him? That's him. He's sitting next to a box that shouldn't be on the ground. Let's see. Also, did you know that when you enter Mentor Roulette, it activates your crown symbol? Kill me. Great. Anyway, the question. Should the positional requirement on DPS actions be nullified when the damage dealer is tanking? Imagine it kind of like an if function. It sounds broken, but they got a beneficial effect for soul instances. No. What they should do, though, is in any case where there's no guaranteed tank, which they've been doing more and more of, they should just make them omnidirectional. Any, add that, for example, tethers to a target and will only attack that target. If you're a DPS and that's on you, you shouldn't have to worry about positionals on that monster anymore. If it's not something that is directly being handled by the tank, or it's something that is autonomous and is easy to get to the rear and the flank, those things are fine. But anything that just is going wild probably doesn't need a positional, specifically solo instances, which you've named right here, or deep dungeons. Those are places where you can't even guarantee having a tank. So I think those are the only places. Any place else? No, I think it's making things more complicated than they need to be, because in 99% of situations, if the DPS is holding aggro, then you have another problem that needs to be fixed. And it's basically just saying, oh, well, you're tanking now, so you don't have to worry about positionals, but your tank is still doing jack shit. So, yeah, no, I don't think I'm a fan of this idea. Here's a fun one. Hey, Happy, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Short 2-part question for you this week. Okay, it's 2 parts, but so it's probably not that short, but it's short enough. So one, which Final Fantasy game would you like to see a collaboration of in 14? I don't really care about collaborations. They're interesting for, if I know they're going to happen, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll partake in it. I would have never asked for a Monster Hunter or a Nier Automata or a Final Fantasy 15, but I fully expected them. And, as soon as they had suggested the idea of a 15 collaboration, I'm like, well, of course we need to get the car, this, that. So once we already know there's a possibility of one, I kind of look at it and I go, well, this is the thing that I'd maybe like to see. But I guess I'm not asking for collaborations. So I don't really have a list. My default answer to this might be 6, but there's not really a reason to do a collaboration with any of the older Final Fantasies, because there's so many elements in Final Fantasy 14 that are already drawn from those. And we have Costa del Sol from 7. We have the Magitech armor with Terra's theme from 6. It's there's not really, I guess, a reason to collaborate with a lot of these games. So thus, I don't really want any of them. So what game in general would be your favorite? I mean, this kind of falls into the same line of the first one. I don't have an answer for this, because I don't want any of my games that I play coming into the MMO that I play for a specific immersion, a specific type of immersion. It just wouldn't make sense to me to have Devil May Cry popping up here. It makes sense in Monster Hunter when it's Capcom and they're always cross-promoting with all their games, and it's a very common thing. But in Final Fantasy, it's not. And thus, I kind of just wanted to stick to what it's doing in the game itself and not focus so much on all these other games that have nothing to do with it. Alright, read through a handful of questions, and this one's fairly simple, so I think I'll do this one. Hey, Mr. Happy, potentially quick question for you. I like when you're not sure because you know how much I talk. Do you have any recommendations for how people should be spending their time in-game to prepare for Shadowbringers? This will be my first time going into a new expansion, and other than leveling multiple jobs, I don't know how I should be meaningfully spending my time in-game before Shadowbringers drops. Thanks in advance and love your content. Thank you. So before Shadowbringers drops, you kind of got to just look at what you want to do. Final Fantasy XIV is not one of those games where there's, I guess everyone should be doing the same thing. Well, the only thing you need to make sure you have done is the main scenario quests. I'd recommend doing the Crystal Tower series before 5.0 because we know the Crystal Tower is going to play an important role in the Shadowbringer story. Even Square Enix made a post saying, hey, don't forget, guys, Crystal Tower is the thing. Make sure you go do it because it's going to be important. Don't forget, we nerfed the conditions you need to actually do it. So, please go do it. So those are like the only really like 2 things. Leveling multiple jobs, leveling crafters, leveling gatherers. Those are all up to kind of like how you want to approach the expansion and not so much how you have to approach it. I just noticed the end is getting cut off here. That's weird. There we go. So yeah, it's a very difficult question. What I'm spending my time doing is I always rack up as much gil and materia as possible. All my crafters are 70, so I can repair for the entire expansion, even if I don't have a crafter level to 80. I'm going to be preparing how to get my crafters to 80, like a game plan of, how did I level from 60 to 70, kind of expecting how it'll go from 70 to 80. Based on Stormblood expansion launch and hoping that it kind of goes that way. Of course, selecting the first job I want to level. Do I want to take Dancer or Gunbreaker from 60 to 70 and then through the story? Or do I want to just take Monk, which is the job that I've mained for all these years? Do I want to just take that through the story first? I also have to consider alts because I'm probably going to be doing some hardcore raid progression as I did throughout this expansion. So, my priorities, I got a lot of priorities. And I'd say I've almost got all of them done. Desynthesis for my Weaver needs 4 more points and it's capped, and I have all my desynthesis capped, and that's important for me for making money in the expansion. But as long as you're done with the story, really nothing else matters. Maybe increase your item level so the first few levels of the expansion are easier, and maybe try to increase it for as many jobs as possible. Why wait until everything's with poetics when you could do it now and then use your poetics on nothing? Suddenly I don't like my own advice. Either way, as long as you're done with the story in Crystal Tower, anything else is up to you. I don't think there really is a must-do other than those things. Next question. Hi, Mr. Happy. How you doing? Yo, I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Good Joey voice. You got your kunai with chain. Sorry, I had to do it. I was curious to get your thoughts on the companion app. Okay. Since its release, I found that most people were disappointed in what they got. Next question. I myself are hoping for something to give me access to my inventory or retainers while away from the game. Doesn't it allow you to mess with your retainers? Move stuff around a little bit? What do you think can be done to make the app better? Literally anything. Except add more microtransactions to it. It just doesn't do anything. Like, even sending my retainers out to do, their missions, or being able to assign my squadron to go do their training missions, or I don't know, talk to people in the game and not just through the app. I don't know, things like that. It just doesn't do anything I want it to do. Except that for having it, I have a little emote in-game. And I think your saddlebag, half your saddlebag is unlocked or something from it. I don't remember. But that thing's dead in the water to me. I don't even want them to do anything else with it. Just move on. It's a really short question, but I was scrolling through. I just saw a quick question that says, how does demonetization work with red users? It works pretty much the same as everything else. So basically, if a video is deemed to not be suitable for advertisers, then, an ad would not play on that video. So thus, red users, their viewing minutes and their view itself would never count for an ad altogether anyway. So it depends on largely what videos you're watching. Red pays the individuals based on what video they're watching and how long they're watching. That's generally how a lot of YouTube works. And if you're red, it doesn't really make that much a difference, because if the video is demonetized, then any viewing regarding it is not being paid out. So I just saw that question real quick, and I might as well just scroll down to the next one, because I think I was going to take this one, and I just saw that one above it, and I just decided, I'll throw that in there. So the next question is, hello, Mr. Happy. Hope everything is going well. I've been a viewer since Stormblood came out, but this is my first time asking a question, so I have a bonus of nothing but different coasters the next time you go to cafe. Ooh, I got a stack of coasters. I don't know if you can see it. They're right... I'm pointing at them, but I don't think it's working. There's like a small stack of them, like right here. There you go. Since they're now bringing in races from past Final Fantasy games as Beast Tribes, which races do you think have a high chance of being included, and which races would you personally like to see? Like to see the likes of the Ukes, the Lilties, the Selkies, and the Clavets from Crystal Chronicles. Crystal Chronicles getting, don't forget, getting a remaster later this year, and I am going to be playing that. I don't know. I think there's some that are pretty obvious, or are from more, I guess, mainstream Final Fantasies, like 10, I could imagine people asking for the Guado. I think that's a big one, especially when people like me want Anima, I think they have a decent probability. I really thought we were going to see the Burmesians at some point, and I feel like there's got to be like a Burmesian capital out there somewhere in one of the worlds. I just feel like it's got to happen somewhere. Other than that, that's actually a really hard question for me. Those two are the first two that pop into my mind. I don't think we'll see like a city of black mages. Like, I don't think they'll do that. I think it'd be really cool if we had Mysidia, for example, pop up. Maybe Mrhappy has Mysidia on it somewhere, and maybe there's a bunch of mages just chilling there. The Mammal Jaw. Actually, a lot of the Final Fantasy XI B-Stripe races, the way they've used them in 14 so far, I've actually rather liked. The Mammal Jaw, I've loved their integration into Final Fantasy 14. I find them infinitely more interesting in 14 than I do in 11, but we don't get to see them. They're almost like comic relief, but not really. It's almost like cultures that don't match. Like the Mammal Jaw and the way their cultures work versus the way that the Eorzean cultures work, they don't mesh at all. So it's funny to a degree, but there's a legitimate frustration between when Mammal Jaw are trying to communicate and, you know, I guess exercise their, what they believe are their customary rights, versus the way Eorze is like, that's just straight up not how we do it here, bro. Please stop doing that. And I would love to see that more. I want to see more of the Mammal Jaw. Because and it also means we could go to the New World, which, you know, that's where they're from. So that's maybe another reason why I want to go. All right, a lot of the questions are commenting on last week's question in regards to quality of life stuff. I don't know how I didn't think of like 90% of these quality of life things. I'm like, so many of these things are things I should have said. Why did I not say these? I know I've said these before. But anyway, this is going to be the last question we take. There's quite a few questions that I've answered in previous weeks. Quite a few questions that I don't really have good answers for. So I had to actually look through all the questions again to find a finale question before ending the video. And this is going to be the one, because I think I can do this one relatively okay. Although I think I've also answered one like this in recent months as well. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hello. What kind of jobs would you like to see in future expansions, and what do you think about the idea of adding a secondary role for some of the current jobs, like Dark Knight as a melee DPS? That second half is a very long answer, so let me do the first half. First half, jobs I'd like to see, I mean, Puppet Master is my number one. Geomancer is big for me. But other than that, those are really, I'd say, the big two. And I'm very curious to see how they would work out, if they were not limited jobs, of course. As for the second thing, the secondary role, you can't really add a secondary role for some jobs and not add a secondary role for tons of jobs. A lot of people like to draw comparisons to World of Warcraft, where they have three, I guess, specs per class. And the reason why that is because once your character selects that class for that character, that's it. That's all that character can ever be. You know, if you're a warlock, you're not suddenly going to wake up one day and decide, oh, I want to make that same character a priest. No, you have to make a new character as a priest. But in Final Fantasy XIV, you have access to every job. So you don't have one job with 3 specs. You have 17 different jobs, 18 if we really want to include Blue Mage. So I think that it's almost 90, I'll go 99%. I won't say 100%. It's like 99.9% certain they'll never make secondary roles for any of the jobs. I especially look at this when I consider the DPS and what they would get for a secondary role. A lot of them aren't suddenly going to, you know, wake up and be healers one day. You know, they basically have to add a secondary DPS role to the same job. And so they don't want to give some jobs that treatment. Other jobs just, oh, we're going to be the same. We don't have any choices, blah, blah. They'd sooner create a whole new job than create a secondary role for a job that already exists. I won't say never, but 99.9% likelihood that they don't do it. And that's going to be my answer, my last answer for Mondays with Mr. Happy this week. Thank you everyone for hanging out. Thank you again for asking your questions as always. And as a reminder, please ask your questions in the comment section of the video below if you haven't already. That's going to be a wrap for me. I'm going to go hang out a little bit. It's going to be a busy week for me. So again, there probably won't be too many videos. No State of the Realm this week in particular, but keep an eye out for a couple news videos. Probably want to pump those out over the next few days before I actually go to LA. I could do them in LA, but I don't want to. So I won't. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see all of you in the next Mondays with Mr. Happy. And until then, take care.